Some of you may have had the opportunity to see hummingbirds who are kind of engaging in territorial behavior, but you may not have had the chance to really see the details like this right here in a freeze frame. What we're going to do here is show kind of real speed or true speed fly-throughs like that one, and then we're going to break them down by slowing it into slow motion, and then showing a few freeze frames of the really interesting kind of detail stuff that they do. You'll see in the slow motion sequence here that the top bird first comes in and threatens the lower bird, and then when the threat doesn't work, the top bird actually grabs her by the feathers on the neck and hauls her away, and she has to do some real struggling and ultimately rolls over on her back, which is kind of an interesting flying technique. Here she goes onto her back and then is finally able to extract herself right there. Here's a couple of more still shots from this where you can see that the top bird is actually latched on and is somewhat hauling her around. This last freeze frame shows the two beaks lined up parallel in a way that looks kind of treacherous or hazardous. Here again, one comes in and is picking at the bird on the bottom that's trying to feed, and in the slow motion shots here, you can see that they actually make contact with each other, and the top bird is going to again grab hold of the feathers of the neck right there. And then in these outtake still shots, you can see again that beak is in contact with the other one's foot. Here they're both going for each other's throats to grab hold of the feathers. Actually makes contact right there. And then finally gives it a bit of a tug with the bottom bird trying to fight back on it. Here again in real-time motion there, you see it's some picking at each other and flitting around, and a little bit of almost flying on their back again. In slow motion, that bird had hold of the lower bird. In this clip, the attacker has to go into retreat mode in order to avoid getting stabbed by the one that was on the feeder. And then the same thing happens again here where the attacker has to retreat. In this one, the attacker comes in and hovers, and the bird that's on the feeder ends up having to just about do a backflip to escape from the oncoming bird. In this next one, they got very thoroughly tangled up and actually went all the way off the camera screen here, and I don't know if they hit the ground or how they extricated themselves from each other. In this clip, you'll see that the one being attacked actually ends up on his back for a brief moment. And in the clip coming up here, you'll see that one comes in at such high speed, it's a big blur, and takes the other one down and again off screen in somewhat of a flying tangle. This clip is of a male attacker. You'll see the black chin, and he comes in at such high speed that it looks like he means business. In this next one, we really don't know what this bird was doing, sort of leaning over all roused up and maybe waiting for another bird. Birds did a little touche, and then she demonstrated some fancy flying on her back there. Here comes another male attacking a female, and yet she pulls a very good defensive maneuver on him and kind of deflects him away from her. This one demonstrates some very fancy flying backwards by this female, I believe that the hummingbirds are the only birds in the world that can fly backwards. Here in the slow motion of those last two segments, you'll see the bird on the feeder do somewhat of a cartwheel dive. And then you'll see the attacker go barely off screen and absolutely turn on a dime and be right back in screen there. Here's another female of these black-chinned hummingbirds. The female has the light-colored throat there, and it's rousing or fluffing up its feathers and kind of, again, leaning over in a way that I'm not sure exactly what it was really doing. Here's kind of a dance-style fencing match between these two guys, one male, one female, and they go pretty far down before they get off the screen there. This clip and the slow motion that follows it is a really great example of flying backwards in a defensive position. The one that was up on the feeder there is going to start backing away, backpedaling here. Here he goes. And he's holding his own, but getting pressed downward and out and away from the feeder, and finally kind of breaks free from the tangle and takes off. It's amazing we're not constantly seeing eye injuries. In this next one here, I think the most interesting thing about this segment is that one of the birds gets pushed way out, flying backwards, and ultimately ends up basically on his back and still flying. So here comes, he's backpedaling, he's backpedaling and gets put on her back there. Here's another example of flying backward to evade an attacker and also keeping a beak pointed at the attacker. The slow motion of that clip, which follows here, looks like the bird is using levitation as an evasive maneuver, which would seem to be just one of their many tricks. With that, I think we're done for this year. Hopefully they'll be back in the spring to visit us again.